Good morning or afternoon, everybody. Glad to have you. Welcome, welcome. Yes, different music. We shook it up. We shaken it up just to be a little different. Hopefully, it wasn't too horrible for you. How is everybody doing? Let me put chat on screen so we can see all of your lovely, sophisticated, intelligent, stunning, brave, and beautiful comments. There we go. Booyah. I saw one of those that I thought was pretty funny. Hold on, let me see which one it was. Come on, load, Mr. Chat. Oh yeah, maybe he's talking right now, but forgot to turn on the stream. Happened just recently. I started the stream. The gaming PC seems to think it's 12:04 right now. I scheduled the stream to start at 12, so I started the stream right when I was like, okay, we'll do a 10-minute pre-show and then we'll get into it. But apparently this gaming PC is off by like 4 minutes, which is weird. Because I thought it was just supposed to sync automatically. Yeah, set time zone automatically. Sync now. Last time it synced was in March. You're telling me in just a few months it got off by minutes? That seems problematic. Is that just me? Yeah, there you go. It's fixed now. You have to go into Windows setting and then hit the sync now button. Otherwise the time gets off. Who knew? Who knew? Huh. Anyway, so let's see. We also, this, for those of you not familiar, this is the pre-show for the podcast. We will have Joel Raptor on here in just a couple of hours, and then we'll do the official podcast. But I thought it'd be good if we did a little pre-show, especially because we do have a handful of things to talk about. There's a bunch of crap going on with Linus Tech Tips, which is baffling. They announced a closed beta, another one, for Skull and Bones. We'll touch on that. You guys are saying there's a Starfield Direct, or a Starfield something. I don't know. What is it? A Starfield developer? Interview. I don't know. These are just like a bunch of reactions. I don't really want to. Oh, now my stream deck isn't working. Hold on. Is it working now? Okay, we're going to do the classic unplug it and plug it back in. We're going to see if that fixes it. Magic, right? What does it even mean when a game goes gold? My understanding is that it typically just means all of the content is there. So the game is done and now you're just polishing. So you're not adding quests, you're not adding encounters. The main, like the campaign can be played start to finish, that kind of thing. There we go. Yeah, so I'm just seeing like reactions to something. Where is the actual just like original content? I also clicked on this to see if Juice had actually had anything new to report, and it's all just like same old, same old. It's like 20 minutes of people on Twitter and what they said. I'm like, guys, I was kind of hoping for something fresh. I touched on this. I retweeted one of these, but I've seen these all over the place, and they're so annoying. According to old rumor of Starfield being in rough shape has now been debunked by leaker. Says no, they are wrong. Hashtag Bethesda. This comes from person who's currently playtesting Starfield and leaked some of story stuff. And I translated for everybody. Some guy said that another guy was wrong when he said this other thing that isn't what I'm saying. The source, a guy. It's just people saying stuff. It might be true, but this is a really bad reason to believe that it's true. Like, really stupid. This is not how you think critically at all. This is an example of what not to do. Also, just quick side note, just in case you guys didn't see it. Also, Baldur's Gate 3 rated the highest rating of any game on PC Gamer's site in like 10 years, I think they said. A 97, which is great to see. So that's cool. They finally reviewed it after 160 hours. Sounds like he had a stroke. I don't think English is his first language. Just being honest. So I don't want to beat up on him too much. But it's more the content itself that I find annoying. Does anybody have like I don't know. Let me just try Googling it. It was on Discord. I'm not in whatever the Discord is, so. Filters. Yeah, I don't. In the past hour? No. Barely anything. Okay, well, if anybody knows of like something that isn't just somebody reacting to stuff about that interview, let me know if there's anything of worth in it. If it was Emil Pagliarulo, that's interesting. Because he definitely is one of the people in the know, but I would just like to see somebody other than like a YouTuber talking about it. That's my job. I do that. Is Starfield an always online game? I don't think they've said. Yeah, Naki. Yeah, we're gonna touch on that. Walder, that's why I said in most instances it means content ready, because they're not gonna like the game still worked on after it goes gold. They're not like they print the discs based on the gold version, so it's done, but we all know what done games mean in 2023. Probably not that done. So they continue to work and polish and refine. Back in the day, going gold was like, we're done. Like, that was cool. Send it off to be printed onto the like little, like whatever card or things that you, I don't know what you would call those, cartridges, I guess. Back with like the old school consoles. But nowadays it's like, okay, we're like done, but we're going to keep working for a month and try to polish. So yeah. Yeah, you remember when Cyberpunk went gold? Yeah, Cyberpunk went gold, like, I don't know when. I guess we could look it up. Cyberpunk goes gold. October 5th. It went gold October 5th. Yeah. Ready for release on November 19th. Remember, it was delayed again into December. So it was delayed after this 2 more months. Well, or not delayed 2 months, but it took 2 months after it went gold for the game to launch, and it still launched super, super broken. So going gold does not mean that like, okay, we're done. The game's great now. No. Okay. When did 76 go gold? Let's see. I mean, that one's weird because they announced it and then released it really quickly. I don't see any announcement for it. So I'm guessing they probably didn't. I'm guessing they probably didn't announce it. Because probably, I mean, honestly, it might have gone gold by the time they announced it. They might have been like pretty much done. But also the other thing is like a lot of the time going gold, the main accomplishment with it. And this is something they talked about in the Raising Kratos documentary. If you haven't seen that on the creation of God of War 2018, you should definitely go watch it. It's tremendous. But they talk about going gold is like a big day because you get to send off basically a version of the game to be printed onto the discs. If you guys don't recall, They didn't do that with Fallout 76. With Fallout 76, they sent like a cardboard game in the actual physical case that just had a redeemable code. They didn't even print discs for it, which is freaking hilarious. But they didn't really do it in the traditional way, which is just so stupid. But anyway, when is Luke going gold? Never, baby. You ain't never finishing this. Oh, golly. They had plastic discs? No, let me see. Fallout 76. Not Discord. Disc. I hate it when Google tries to be helpful. Yeah, this is it. It's like a piece of paper. Like a piece of paper cardboard. And then inside this piece of paper was the actual code. So this didn't even have the code on it. This is just something they put in the case. And then this little piece of paper had the redeemable code on it. So when we say like Fallout 76 went gold, kinda. Yeah, sorta, I guess, maybe. But I don't know. Every time people see like that a game goes gold, it's always like, okay, yeah, that is literally the bare minimum for a game. Okay, like if it doesn't go gold, it doesn't release at all. So, like, is this supposed to be really exciting? I honestly don't know. What people maybe are excited for is that it just makes it feel all the more real that it's coming. Yeah, this indicates that the main development of the game has been completed and it's ready to move on to the manufacturing. So they're going to send it off to be printed onto discs, like I said. Bethesda has also confirmed that players will be able to preload the game on the Series X and S on August, not October. That would be bad. August 17th. And you'll be able to preload it on Steam August 30th, which I believe is the day before the early access begins. So that makes sense. If you allow early preload onto Steam, you risk data miners and stuff like that. You still risk that with early preloads on console, but less so. It's a lot trickier. Yeah, it was originally scheduled to release in November, but in May of 2022, the game was delayed to the first half of 2023 and then delayed again to September. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of it. It's just going to be available for preload and they're going to start manufacturing it. So make of that what you will. Fallout 76 went iron, went clay. They went fool's gold. That's awesome. Oh, sweet. I can find it on there. Let's look at that. Okay. r/Starfield. Let's see. Developer Q&A. I still watch, just for the record, I still watch Mythbusters to this day, so I love that Adam Savage is still doing stuff. I freaking love it. Maybe this one. Starfield's PC specs, Rule 1, Gone Gold. Full transcript. There it is. Okay. Let's see. What do we have here? Kid stuff traits. Parents be generated based on our character's look and standard parents put in place. Okay. I'm not sure I'm that interested in that. How will smuggling cargo system work? Can we hide it somewhere on the ship and sell it for more currency later? Certain items are considered contraband. You will need to smuggle them past security ships that are in the orbit of major settlements. Emil said there are specific items that are considered contraband, meaning they're pretty much illegal everywhere. And yes, you can hide them using special ship modules you can purchase. So, don't get caught with those harvested organs. Fallout Boy wearing sunglasses emoji. The economy is fixed, but prices of bought and sold goods can change based on the skills you choose. Okay. I know some people were thinking that this was going to be like a universe or galaxy simulated economy with all sorts of crap like that. No, like the game, again, the game's not magic, and I think that's okay. Trying to do everything means you end up doing most things poorly. So locking the economy, I think, is fine. I don't care that much. I don't care that much. I think that's fine. I skipped the first question. I know, because it's just like, who gives a crap? Oh, I see this one. I thought you were like, you skipped the kid stuff trait. I'm like, who cares about the kid stuff trait? But this one, can we buy houses or property? Thank you for calling this out. I almost skipped this. This is a good one, Walter. Thank you. Can we buy houses or property in main cities? Yup, there's housing in different cities that the player can get. Some you have to purchase and some are rewards for specific quests. And then Emil goes, yep, sure can. You can purchase a dwelling in all major cities in the game. And there's at least one that you get specifically for completing something. Blushing face. Okay. Okay. I don't, is that like saying that if you sex someone, you get a house? I have no idea. Okay. Whatever. You can get places, which is cool. Kind of like in Fallout 4. I mean, that's nothing that scandalous or new, but still cool. Ghost, also, thank you for re-upping your membership, my friend. Thank you. For those of us who have never played a BGS game and will be starting with Starfield, what information should we know that will make the experience more impactful right from the start? How deep should we go into creating our character's backstory before we start the game? Emil, well, we always make our games for fans, both old and new. So you can jump in without having
1120 is now a red flag.
Yeah, you are. So you can now jump in without ever having played a Bethesda title before. Yeah, makes sense. We look at it less like playing a game, more about living in the universe we created. So settle in, go in at your own pace. Pretty soon you'll learn all the systems and be adventuring through the settled systems the way you choose. As for going into a character's backstory, that's entirely up to you. I'm all about that headcanon. For example, my latest character is a working schlub named Mitch Dombrowski. That's funny. He's a husky, good-natured space trucker, and while he'll do whatever he needs to defend himself, he'll never shoot first. He's like Han Solo's sweeter, older brother. And yes, there are traits and backgrounds to support that kind of thing. Will, while we do start you off in the same spot, what happened to you before the game starts is totally up to you in your headcanon. There's a trait and background system that will let you, yeah, I mean, we already know this. Just typical role-playing. If you want to role-play heavily, you can do that. If you just don't want to worry about it, you don't have to worry about it. Okay, we read that one. How will there be a jail system if you commit crimes? Yes, you can elect to go to jail or pay a fine when you're arrested, or even resist arrest and try escape. Okay. Yep, the settled systems is more like Skyrim than Fallout 4's Commonwealth in that regard. Yeah, bunch of criminals. There's civilization, there's government, and there are laws. And in a couple cases, we actually explore the themes of crime and punishment in our futuristic universe. Okay, cool. Jail systems. I do miss that from Skyrim. I thought that was a cool addition that they just dumped for Fallout 4. I get why. Like, Fallout 4 is not a great setting to have, like, a big overarching government body that sends you to jail if you misbehave. I understand that. So I think it fits thematically, but I always thought it was cool in Skyrim to be like, to misbehave and then be prompted. You either pay back for your crimes or you're going to jail. You know, I kind of like that. Let's see. Will time pass when not in the game? For example, will my trade routes, outposts, and mining operations continue to produce, or does that only occur while actively playing? Emil, the sim only runs when you're actively playing. No sleeping on the job. Only when actively playing. That makes sense to me. I will say I've played a handful of simulation games. I remember playing, I think it was Thrillville. Do you guys remember Thrillville? No, not Thrillbill. Thrillville. Yeah, this game, dude. I think it was the PS2 I played it on. And yeah, this is it. It's like a theme park simulator. You can build your own theme park and all this. And I remember building out my theme park and then leaving it on overnight to just generate revenue so that I could build bigger and crazier things. Because of course the simulation didn't run when you turned it off. But I remember leaving it on overnight to rake in some extra money so that I could build even bigger rides and do crazier stuff. So that takes me back to being a kid. That's just funny. You know, staying up all night wasn't an option, so you just like set the joystick on the controller with a rubber band or a hair tie from your sister or something, so that they're just running in place nonstop. Yeah, I remember doing that. Did this in Fable 2. I was a hell of a landlord. Yeah, exactly. I think we've all, if you've played any simulation type games, you've probably done that. Let's be honest. Can you be a double agent in this game? For example, if you join the United Colonies, can you also join the Crimson Fleet and give the United Colonies information? And what factions have that feature if they do? Will all of the playable factions can be completed independently? So it does sound like they're leaning into much more, like this is much closer to Skyrim than Fallout 4, for example. The Crimson Fleet storyline does feature you being an undercover agent inside the fleet on behalf of the UC SysDef, a specific military branch of the United Colonies. But whether you betray the fleet or UC SysDef is a choice you will get to make. That's exactly what you can do. Infiltrate the Crimson Fleet. It's specific to that quest line. In the studio, I have been half jokingly accused of referencing movies that some folks have never seen because I'm old. So with this particular plotline, the inspiration was very much the movie Donnie Brasco, which is the true story of an FBI agent who infiltrates the mafia. How far will you go? Interesting. I mean, that's cool. Depending on traits selected during character creation, will it at all be possible to play through the game in a pacifist mode, i.e. without killing anyone or even potentially anything? I've done Jesus playthroughs, or like Gandhi playthroughs, where you just go through and you don't sleep with anyone, you don't like kill anyone. It's honestly pretty miserable. I don't recommend anybody do it. It's like pretty terrible as far as playing a game and actually having fun. But I like to do it because it tests whether or not this game actually allows you to role play like with full freedom, which in the case of like Fallout New Vegas, you can. I think you can get all the way to the end of the game without killing anybody. Fallout 3, you can't. I think you have to kill people in Fallout 3. And Fallout 4, I mean, you have to kill many, many, many people. So it's pretty rare that this type of thing is supported, but let's see. Will, I can't guarantee every mission can be completed in pacifist mode, but we do have a couple of systems that will help. One system is our speech challenge game where you persuade someone to do something like not fight you. Okay. No, it's just because they're having multiple teams develop quests, unless it comes from on high. Sounds like I'm referencing God, but I mean, I'm specifically referencing Todd Howard, or God Howard as we know him. For him, like, unless he said to every quest designer at the studio, make sure it allows for a pacifist playthrough. There has to be an option for not killing anyone. Unless he clearly states that, I would guess that there's a handful of these that don't support pacifist runs, just because it's going to be such a niche thing. Emil, so we talked about this very early on in pre-production, whether or not we would fully support non-lethal playthroughs. We realized that for various reasons that wasn't totally feasible. Now, that being said, there are some good non-lethal options, whether through dialogue or by using non-lethal weapon. Those can be used in certain situations. Honestly, a lot of situations, though I couldn't comfortably say you can complete the entire game without killing anyone whatsoever. The settled systems is mostly civilized, but it can be a dangerous place if you're going off the beaten path, and you're absolutely going off the beaten path. Rocket ship emoji. Makes sense. I mean, again, like, I don't consider this to be that damning or problematic. Like, most games, most RPGs nowadays, you have to be violent to get through. Like, you just do. I don't know. I don't think you can even do a pacifist run of something like Baldur's Gate 3. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure in the first hour or two, you're going to have to do something. I don't think you can just like float through and let everybody else kill everything for you. Like, there's areas that you can, like, how would you get past the, well, I don't want to get spoilerific. Oh, I guess you could set their attacks to non-lethal and just incapacitate people. I guess you could do that. Oh, this person raises a good point. I don't know if they changed this in the final game. There are non-violent paths for quests, but the issue is that there's currently no non-combat XP. You will be forced to do combat sometimes. And when you avoid combat for more than 50% of all combat, you'll be seriously underleveled. Yeah, so eventually you just end up screwed. I wonder if they've changed that. Either way, like, again, it's such a niche thing. So few people are going to be playing in pacifist modes. I just don't think it's that big of a deal. And even somebody like me that will experiment with it and try it, I'm doing it in addition to a regular run. So again, it's just not that big of a deal. I don't think this is a problem, frankly. I wouldn't be worried about this. What are the beliefs, basic history of religions we can join? Okay, so this one, existing IRL religions are part of the Starfield universe with folks of all religions and denominations out there, but we don't really focus on them. Instead, we highlight 3 new ones specific to the game. Interesting. So you could find like Mormons, maybe. I would love to know what spacefaring Mormons are like. That could be interesting. You know? And do they actually reference it in the game? That would be funny. You do get XP for talking your way out now. Is it similar to what you would get for completing the combat encounter, though? That would be my question. Because, like, I know that they might throw 30 XP at you, but if they throw, like, 30 XP or 40 XP for every single enemy you defeat, like, what, you're not going to be anywhere near as high leveled as you need to be after just, like, 10 hours. But I don't know. Either way, it's not that big of a deal, I don't think. You can also do side quests for XP, but most of those side quests require like violent confrontations. Go here to grab this thing from these people, and then you go there and they're being attacked by wolves or stuff. I guess it also depends. For pacifist mode, are you referring to only killing humanoids or anything? You know? Like, I don't know. Either way, I don't think it's that big of a deal. Yeah, space Amish people, I'd be interested in that. Do they, like, because they're currently using technology that's like 150 years old, do they just start using spaceships that just look really outdated, but it's okay because they're older? You know, like, it's always been strange to me. I've referenced this the other day, but it's like that Family Guy bit where all of the Amish guys sit around and pray, and they're just like, thank you, Lord, for giving us the haircuts of Abraham Lincoln, the most sexy man who ever lived, and for also giving us the perfect amount of technology in 1830. Not too little, not too much. Just the right amount. And that's what I can't ever unsee it whenever I see people using wagons and like machined cloth and things. I'm like, oh, well, that's convenient. Like, at least if you went full caveman mode, I might respect you a little bit more, you know, because like, oh wow, you're really going hardcore. Let's see, world-renowned GeoHound. What I've gotten from all the revealed information to date is that Starfield literally does nothing new aside from lots of land. It's Fallout in space with No Man's Sky tech. To me, it seems like most of the stuff they're describing is much more Skyrim in space with new, like, No Man's Sky tech. I mean, I wouldn't say, like, they're doing anything that crazy novel. It just sounds like a standard big BGS game in space, which, again, is not a bad thing. Like, that's not an insult at all. It's just, that seems to be what it is. But in terms of core mechanics and stuff, much more similar to Skyrim than Fallout 4 for sure. Which, again, I think is very good, because I think Fallout 4 stripped out way too much stuff for seemingly no benefit. Here they go into the different religions. I'm not going to read through that because it's kind of spoilery, so I'm just not going to touch on that. How many companions total will we be able to recruit? There are over 20 named characters who can join your crew. 4 of them are from the Constellation and have the most story and interaction with the player, but all of the named characters have their own backgrounds and you can follow you around and carry your stuff. Okay, so 20. Over 20 total probably means 21, let's be honest. It's like when a car salesman or something says, yeah, it has under 242,000 miles. It's like, so it has 241,000 miles. Is that what you're saying? You know, like, let's be honest. It's all in how you phrase it, but that's still fine. That's a lot of companions. I'll give them that. That's a lot. We really focus on members of the Constellation. When we first began pre-production on Starfield, we looked back at previous games and realized how popular and effective the companions were. They were a big priority for us, and we really wanted to tie them directly to the main quest. There are some really big moments with them specifically. I should also mention that our companion voice cast is amazing. We haven't realized the list or released the list yet, but you can be sure there are a lot of talented actors bringing those characters to life. I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure they got some good voices. And I think companions are really important for games like this because they give you somebody to bounce ideas off of and to interact with while you explore. So it's not just a big lonely mission. So I think companions are going to be an important piece of this. Also, Machete, do I think the PSVR 2 has been under supported thus far? Absolutely. I said at the time, and I got a lot of flack in some of these videos we put up. I remember we put one stream clip up where I just said, I don't think you should buy the PSVR 2 because right now there aren't enough games for it. And they haven't announced more games. So I don't know why you would spend a lot of money on it, hundreds and hundreds of dollars on it, when there's one game that's the launch title that is being rated at a 7 out of 10. I just don't think you should spend $500+ on something for that. And we had that video shared in like the PSVR 2 subreddit, and it got like mass downvoted. People tried flagging it. People tried copyright striking it to get it taken down and to flag this channel. Like, pretty hardcore stuff because I dared to say I didn't think it was a very good value. And now, all of these months after launch, it seems like everybody agrees with me. So, sucks to suck. I'm sorry all of those people wasted so much money. I tried to warn you, but again, hype makes you stupid. Anyway, when we assign crew members to work at outposts, do we have to pay them salaries? I didn't know Linus was in this game. Oh, wow. We'll talk about that in a bit, guys. Okay. I haven't really dug into it. I just know the meme right now is that Linus has gotten a little full of himself, a little bit, but we'll touch on that. You will just pay them once. We actually experimented with paying them regular salaries, but ultimately decided to have just one cost up front. There's a lot to do in Starfield, and we wanted to minimize what the player had to constantly keep track of. I can understand that. One-time payment that you can use the speech challenge game to negotiate over. Some traits also affect the cost. Okay. I'm fine with that. I mean, it's, again, this isn't a hardcore simulation game. I like having budgets and things that scale in games, but I'm also kind of a masochist when it comes to simulation games. So I understand that maybe they just wanted to streamline it. Maybe. Yeah. Lo-fi or lawful, I don't know what it is. We mentioned this on stream. I think this is what you're referencing, unless you're being serious, in which case I'm sorry for you. But somebody did say once that like Luke's such an Xbot, and I'm like, bro, I don't know how many like Xbots have 3 PS5s in their house and like go pretty hardcore into Sony exclusives and like have given Xbox so much crap for all their stuff. But yeah, I mean, if you want to just say stuff, I guess we can do that. I didn't realize we were just playing the say stupid stuff game. Oh, I can do it too. That was an intelligent comment. There you go. We're all doing it. No, but like I said, I think he's joking because we just talked about that the other day when somebody came in and was like, oh, such an Xbot. Bro, come on. I'm sorry I don't agree with you on the PSVR 2. I'm sorry that I thought that was an overpriced, technologically very impressive piece of hardware, but so maybe not overpriced, but it just was not prepared for launch in terms of content. And you can see it now. Everybody's like, dude, mine's collecting so much dust. You know, it's crazy. Oh, did I say Series X or I have no idea. Anyway, I like, I'm moving on. This is stupid. This is so dumb. Let's see. So they went through that. Will our companions be able to level up their perks? Will their perks stack with ours? All crews start with a set of perks at specific ranks. So you might meet a character that's especially good at rifles and you hire them to watch your back, or you might meet an astrodynamics expert that will increase your grab jump range when assigned to your ship. They don't level up, but they come at different ranks depending on the companion. Well, we call them skills in Starfield, and they do stack with yours when relevant. Some are there for flavor to highlight the companion's backgrounds and interest, but you'll really feel the benefit of the ship and combat related ones. Getting a boost to your shields or seeing your companion laying down fire with a weapon they're proficient in are really sweet, or are pretty sweet moments. Okay. So they have abilities that stack. Okay. Cool. To be clear, I wasn't insulting Starfield. I love the idea of Fallout, Skyrim in space. I'm just commenting on the crazy Xbox out there hyping this game as a technological marvel. No, I absolutely agree. It's like when we had somebody come in and they said, do you really believe that the Series X or Series S, and I think they were like maybe a Sony pony type or like a Starfield detractor or something. But I think they were coming in and trying to be like, oh, you really believe they're getting this game working on the Series S? I'm like, yeah. Like, what they're doing in Starfield is no more technologically amazing than what many other games have already done, whether it's No Man's Sky, Star Citizen, which obviously doesn't run on consoles, but still. Or even some games like Minecraft in a lot of ways are doing things just as technologically impressive. Just because we're used to it now does not mean it's any less impressive. Dwarf Fortress, in a lot of ways, I find much more impressive than what they've announced so far with Starfield. And if you're not familiar with Dwarf Fortress, go check it out. It will blow your freaking mind. It is a marvel of coding. It's baffling. It's just blow your brain apart. So I agree. I don't think they're doing anything that crazy novel or wild. But that doesn't mean that it's going to be a bad game either. All of the text for our notifications got all shifted around.
Mr. Mo donated $4.99 through Super Chat. Have you thought of doing a Baldur's Gate Let's Play on members-only streams where we can vote on dialogue and decisions? Think that could be fun.
First of all, thank you for the $4.99. That's very generous, my friend. I would say yes, I'm open to it. But what we've also noticed is that when we do the members only streams, a lot of the time people just want to like chat or talk and hang out because we're able to be a little bit more candid than we are in the big streams like this. So I'm open to it, but with the members only streams, it's always just like, what are the members feeling? If people in chat are like, no, let's just chat, let's just hang out, then we can do that. Or if we want to start playing a game, I can do that too. But, you know, it's about keeping you happy. I just want to please you. Tom, if this game ends up with an 80 to 85 on Metacritic, would you say that that's a disappointment for Bethesda? I don't know what they're expecting to get. I would freaking love to know what they are bracing for or what they expect it to be like. So I'd be interested in that. As for like me, I'm expecting it to be in the 80s. I expect it to be like high 80s, probably mid to high 80s, somewhere between 85 and 89. That's where I'm banking. You know, if I was a betting man, that's where I'd bet it lands. Because I expect it to be a competent game. I expect it to be pretty compelling. I don't expect it to be that magical. I don't expect it to be a 500-hour game that you just never stop playing. I fully expect that after about 40, 50 hours, you've probably seen a lot of what the game has to offer, if not most of it, and things have started to get repetitive. That's what I'm expecting. So for me, if they get an 85, I'll be like, yeah, it's kind of where I thought it would be. But you better believe there's going to be a lot of hardcore fanboys that are going to be smoking some mad copium to try and justify that, because they're under the impression that this is going to be like the greatest game of all time. And for those types, I think they're in for a rude awakening, because Bethesda, outside of Skyrim, they've released some very successful games, but they don't actually review as well as people think they do. People remember the games much more fondly. Maybe that's because of mod support. Maybe that's just because of the nostalgia bias. I don't know. But when you look at the track record for Bethesda games, they don't actually have the Rockstar track record of just hitting it out of the park every single time, which is just interesting to me. Yeah, Ambient Oblivion, thank you for the reminder. Everybody hit the like button, because likes help the stream, I'm told. So do that. Please and thank you. Wondering what will be your next Ultimate critique. Great videos, by the way. Appreciate you, CC. I am working my butt off on Baldur's Gate 3, but I'm not sure. I mean, it's just a freaking massive game. So we're working through that. As for other stuff, I will be doing a handful of reviews over the next month or two. So those are kind of clogging up the production schedule. I fully expect to do a pretty big critique breakdown of Starfield. And frankly, I think that will get preference over Baldur's Gate. So if I haven't finished Baldur's Gate by the time that happens, I will be shifting and focusing more on Starfield. But after that, probably Spider-Man 2 and then Baldur's Gate and then whatever comes out next year. That's my expectation. Yeah, I agree. This is going to be mid 80s. Some people think Xbox are going nuts over this and think it's the next coming of God. Yeah, well, and the great thing is if you expect an 85 and it comes out and it's a 95, I'm going to be way more pumped than you. Like, I'm going to be so excited to see that success. Like, I'm going to be over the moon. Over the moon. Iron Will.
_Will 7 is now a red flag.
Yeah, you are a red flag. Thank you for that. And also got the show off tier. What a show off. Thank you, my friend. Very generous. Appreciate you. It's wonderful. So, yeah, I mean, all of that to say, I just think if you come in with, I think, realistic expectations, like an 85, which when you look at the last 3 BGS games and you average the scores, that's not that crazy. Even if you look at the last, 5, that's pretty in line. But if you do that, and then the game ends up being an amazing triumph of game design and one of the best games ever made in actuality, then you're all the more surprised. Then you're all like, wow, that's awesome. I didn't expect that. Yeah, Bob, I agree. Like, most of their stuff sits high 80s, low 90s. And then they've had a couple of games that were 84. Or I think it depends on which platform you look at. I think Metacritic. So it depends. Yeah, on PC, Fallout 4 is an 84. Which, is not tremendous. That puts it in a B. A B to B minus. On Xbox, it reviewed at 88, which is a pretty good score. PS4 doesn't really count anymore, I guess, because it's not going to be releasing on Sony stuff. But yeah, these scores are not bad. They're fine. But it's not like they're consistently dropping 95s, like Rockstar. So I expect it to be good. Probably not one of the best games ever made, but probably fine. Yeah, pretty good. Let's see. This is interesting. What are your favorite parts of the game? Shipping it. But seriously, folks, because of my position, my experience is a little different than yours. I won't speak for Will, but personally, I've seen every questline, every city, every major piece of content in the game at every stage of development. So my answer is colored by that. Yeah, I think it's one of those things where they're probably just ready to move on and they're kind of sick of it at this point. Honestly, think of that. You've been working on something for 5 years. You're probably kind of sick of it. Even if it's really awesome, even if it's great, you're probably ready to just move on. I said 84 is it's good. 84 is a B. A B is good. High B's are oh, that's pretty good. Well done. Low 90s, an A minus. Oh, that's okay. That's very good. That's good. Well done. Well done. It's pretty excellent. Mid 90s, a solid A. Great job. Great job. You did it. And then high 90s is you are a freaking genius. You're amazing. I love you. That's what that is. So I don't think anybody said 84 is bad. So I don't know if somebody in chat said that or not. But yeah, that's not that's not that. 84 is bad as the way you said it. Okay, you're baiting me. Nobody's that stupid. Let's move on. If ears are clogged, I don't know how to help. We're just gonna move on. I love you dearly. I'm thankful you're in the chat, but I don't know what the hell you're talking about. So I absolutely understand all of this. I would guess you're probably pretty sick of the game by the time you're done with it. At least to me, working on something for 5 years, I would be ready to move on. For me, the real pleasure is seeing how they've evolved into the versions they are today, the versions everyone here will play. I have a real soft spot for Neon. Getting that city nailed down took a lot of work by a lot of different people, and the result is really the cyberpunk settlement I always hoped it would be. I also love all the quest lines. I think they're the best we've ever done. The designers on this project totally killed it. Totally. Then Will said, I love finding content that I haven't seen yet or forgot about. Our games are so big that no one person is likely to have seen it all, even after all our passes and levels of review. Our quests really evolve under development, and it's great to see how everyone adds to them. Designers, animators, voice actors, lighting, everything. Makes sense, yeah. But I would guess they're just ready to move on to the next big thing, because after this, they get to move on to Elder Scrolls. You better believe after working on Fallout and then moving into this futuristic thing, a lot of them are pretty excited to do something more medieval and fantasy. I bet they're just thrilled to be able to move on to the next thing. I mean, I'm sure they're going to have some small teams working on DLC and everything, but you know, they're going to shift into that. AAA is more often than not disappointing, so why should they get a 90? It's always 90s in the context. The grade is in the context of its peers. So it's why I said, like, whether Bethesda likes it or not, they are entering the peers of games like No Man's Sky, Elite Dangerous, Star Citizen. Like, they've entered that group, Mass Effect even. And so they will be judged accordingly. Just like if you make an RPG, now you're also going to be tossed into the likes of being compared against Baldur's Gate 3, for example. So, because, like, a game can be from a AA studio or a AAA studio or a quadruple A studio, but there's no such thing as quadruple A dollars or AAA dollars or indie dollars, monopoly dollars. Like, it's just money. So if one company's charging $70, but their budget was 500 million, but this other company spent 50 million and is also charging $70, I don't blame players for trying to look across the divide and being like, you're charging me the same amount for these two very, very different things. But again, all that's kind of, it's all separate. BGS needs to let another studio work on Fallout. I mean, I think Fallout 76 was meant to be their game that lasts forever with Fallout to tide players over until the next full entry releases. And like, that was their goal with it. I don't think a lot of people who are really into Skyrim shifted over to ESO. I think they're just different markets and they appeal to different people. And same with Fallout 76. I just think people really into Fallout games are not finding that satisfaction in Fallout 76. But now with Microsoft owning them, maybe that changes. Maybe they do talk to to Obsidian and see if they can work something out. I wouldn't be surprised if in the next 3-4 years we hear something about a Fallout New Vegas sequel or something like that. I think that's a layup. Like, super, super easy to just print money with that. Corey, honestly, I just remember picking games that were a little leaner when I was working that corporate real estate job, and I was waking up at 6 a.m. and I wouldn't get back home until 8:30-ish p.m. After an hour and a half commute to and from work. Like, it's a pretty, it was a grind, to say the very least. It was a grind. You know, I had to be out the house at 7, didn't get back till 8:30. Yeah, it was a grind. But what I found helped was just picking some games that were really, really solid. And like, I remember I played Mafia Definitive Edition, and I just would put an hour into that a night, and that was like my release. And then I was also working on a critique of Assassin's Creed Valhalla.
Assassin's Creed Valhalla.
And that was miserable. But don't do that. Like, I would embrace shorter games, or if you're somebody that likes to really perfect one game, pick that one game and just obsess over it. Like, really get to know it, the ins and outs. But it's certainly tricky. But yeah, if Mafia is on your list, cannot recommend that enough. Mafia Definitive Edition is tremendous. Sorry, utterly tremendous. Utterly. Oh, baby. Agree, review skills are broken. 90 plus should be extremely rare. Most games should fall in the 65 to 79 range. I totally agree, Richard. I think a lot of it is that people, like, a lot of this also falls on like YouTubers and streamers and stuff. Because when a game releases in the 80s, we're like, oh, so it's just fine. And I think what a lot of people, like the mistake a lot of people made, is that they mixed up AA and AAA and stuff. And so a lot of AA games were awarded 80s because everybody thinks that if a AAA game comes along, it's much easier to get a 90 with a AAA budget than a AA budget. And it shouldn't, in theory, be like that. It shouldn't at least be like that. But as a result, everybody just has the perception that if a game comes along and is like a 70, okay, so it's bad. No, a 70 is fine. A 70 is okay. Like Atlas Fallen, which I just reviewed, I'd give that a 7 out of 10. Like, it's fine. Like, you can have a good time with it over 12 hours. You can play it in a weekend and have a fine time with it, even a good time with it. But it's not going to win any crazy awards. It's just like a nice, easy game to enjoy. Just like most Marvel movies are like 7 out of 10s or even 6 out of 10s. Like, they're not going to change your life. You're going to go see it, kind of forget about it. You're not going to remember the main character's name in a week. But you had a decent time when you went out to the movies and enjoyed it. So I think it's just like, you got to pick your, like, I don't know what I'm saying. Like, but I do agree that I think the review scale is a little broken. And I think we need the return and acceptance, and we need to also support some of those 7 out of 10 games. The problem is just when games are $70, very few people feel as though they can spend $70 on a big game and then go drop $50 on a AA game that's a 7 out of 10. Because while it's cheaper, it's still $50 freaking dollars. And that, I mean, that is a lot still. And those AA companies can't justify the creation of that game pricing it at $20. So they're just kind of screwed. So it probably means that, especially as we run into a pretty rough economy in the next year, we probably see a lot of those AA games getting canceled and some of those more average games kind of falling by the wayside. And so you're just going to see it more polarized. You're going to see tremendous AAA games that get 9s and 10s, and then a handful of AAA games that turn into Forspoken or something and just are total disasters. That's what I'm thinking. Yeah, Baldur's Gate 3 feels more like a $100 game. I mean, honestly, you're not that wrong. Sometimes it feels silly that we got that thing for the same price as a lot of these other older games. It's wild. I get the review scores should be an objective scale, but it's just not how it's worked for the past decade. Well, and part of it is that all of these companies have different standards. So like the companies that do, is it Video Games Chronicle? I think they use the stars. So they use 5 stars instead of a like out of 10 scale. And that, like, a film can come along and get 2 stars, which means it's like, it's not very good. Maybe it's even bad, but like, you could still watch it. A 1 star is just you don't even bother. But like 2 stars, it's like, it's fine. It's whatever. But when you convert that on Metacritic to out of 10, which is what Metacritic does, it's now a 40. Which is certainly a failing grade, so it's just different. Angry Joe does 5 out of 10 as average. Yeah, as long as you're very clear with your audience, I think that does it. It's why in my reviews, I try to steer clear now of giving a number to it, because I just don't think it's that helpful. Most people are like, okay, so it's 7 out of 10. Okay, so it's kind of bad. I'm like, no, I'd rather just verbalize and explain how it is. And then we can deal with it from there. And if you go and translate that to, okay, so basically a 7 out of 10. Okay, we're cool there. But if I give you a 7 out of 10, a lot of people just shut down. And then whatever their interpretation of what a 7 out of 10 means takes over. And I'd rather just explain what I mean. Like, it's fine. It's okay. Or this is one of the best games I've ever played. It's amazing. And if you fill that in with a 10 out of 10, awesome. If that to you is a 9 out of 10, whatever, who cares? But just so long as you understand the point that's being made. Advice for people trying to figure out what they want to do in life. I would say, having gone and tried like the rat race of business and making money at a soul-sucking job, it wasn't for me. I would much rather make less money doing what I love and am passionate about than something that I absolutely hate but can get rich quick doing. But some people are different. Maybe you're somebody that would be fine selling your soul to the devil for 10 years to make some money and then retire and live the life you want to live. But you don't know until you try it, right? And there's nothing wrong. If you want to sell your soul to the devil and make stupid amounts of money really quickly and then retire and have a family and stuff, I'm not going to judge you for that. Good on you. But you won't know until you try. So I would just say, like, stay hungry, try lots of things, and never rest. Sleep when you're dead. Like, I detest sleep. I've said many times, if there was a pill I could take that would make it so I never have to sleep again, I would take 2 of them. I cannot stand sleeping. I hate it. And I think that that's helped me in my life because it makes it so I want to get up and going and do stuff and try to be semi-productive. And I would encourage other people to try and adapt that mindset. Yeah, stay hungry, stay foolish. Yeah. Sleep is the biggest waste of time ever. It's one time there was an older guy that came to like our youth group when I was a kid. This dude was like 95. He was ancient. Very wise though, but he was like 90s, and he came in and the like teacher, whatever guy said, "Do you have any advice for these kids?" And it was just, do you have advice as a 95-year-old man for these youngsters? And he just said, when you chart it out, 1/3 of your life is spent working. The second third of your life is spent doing things you probably want to do or sometimes don't want to do, like house chores, going out with friends, spending time with your family. And the third is sleeping. He's like, you will spend 1/3 of your life, most likely, in bed. And that, as like a 12-year-old or 10-year-old, I don't know how old I was, but that as a kid mortified me. And I was like, why would I want to spend 1/3 of my life laying somewhere mimicking the actions of a dead person only to get up and then start living my life? So my goal in life is to just figure out how I can sleep the least and do the most. Life's too short to sleep, in my opinion. Anyway, let's back to gaming. Oh man. Back to video games. Sorry everybody. Let's see. What are some of your favorite small details in Starfield that add to the immersion? Emil, I think what I really love is that although humans are living in space and our aesthetic is very much NASA punk, this is a very lived-in universe, and you can see it everywhere. Everyone loves the sandwiches, but it's the books that are lying around, the notes on the bulletin boards, the environmental storytelling that our level designers and world artists are so good at. So I'm a slow typer and somewhat typo obsessed. Okay. I love the work from our voice actors too, and the music and sound effects and clothes. That's funny. I look really closely at all our outfits. You can see seams, materials, especially on the spacesuits. Constellation members have patches on their spacesuits, and they're tied to what skills they have. That's cool. We also love buttons. There's a lot of buttons. We do love our buttons. Oh, I do want to mention this. If you haven't heard about it, Adam Savage and the team are building a filming model of Frontier of the Frontier, and that ship, man, and all the ships, the level of detail is insane. Yeah, Adam Savage is doing that. That's cool. And the history of the mechs, good one. So we showed this a bit in our animated shorts. The mechs are leftovers from the Colony Wars. Note it's Colony War and not Colony Wars singular. Okay. Both sides, Colony, United Colonies, and the Freestar Collective had mechs, but the Freestar Collective really mastered them. The United Colonies had mechs too, but they also relied on the controlled alien beasts from their Xeno Warfare Division. Both of those were outlawed in the armistice that ended the Colony War. I'm not saying there's an old mech battleground in the game. I'm typing it, winky face emoji. Interesting. Maybe that's on one of the empty planets. There's just like a bunch of destroyed mechs and stuff. Honestly, I'm surprised there's not more questions here. I mean, it's a good number of questions, but I guess it just moves fast when you're having fun. And I guess some people were asking for it. I'll read the kid thing. I'll read it. Yes, Joraptor is coming in about an hour, just so everybody knows. In about an hour, he will be joining us. If we get the kid stuff traits, okay, I can't read. Jesus Christ. I'm sorry. I'm having a stroke. Maybe I do need more sleep. If we get the kid stuff trait, will our parents be generated based on what our characters look like, or are there standard parents put in place? What benefits might there be? Our programmers, on our new face tech, we're excited to make a function that could try to match your custom face and then create the two parents. They said this with Fallout 4 though. You remember with Fallout 4, they said they would merge the parents' faces to create Sean's face. This was like a well-known thing with Fallout 4, so I don't think this is new. So they're based on what your character looks like, although the specific math involved is a bit beyond me. We had similar tech in our previous games. Yeah, exactly. Yes, totally. We just did this in Fallout 3 with your dad and in Fallout 4 with your son. In Starfield, if you take that kid stuff trait, your parents are based off you. No spoilers, but I think our fans really appreciate the actors who got to play those roles, and they just get so into it. It's awesome. Oh, and yeah, you can get stuff. Okay. Whatever that means. I mean, they don't really say anything that novel or crazy that I didn't see coming, honestly. So there's nothing that shocking in that interview. It just sounds like this is going to be much closer to Skyrim than it is to Fallout 4, which I think is great. So yeah, there's that. There's that. Other little tidbit about Starfield. Apparently they updated the install size. Oh boy! That's a thick ass boy. Look at that boy. Thick ass boy. 139.84 gigabytes. That's a lot of gigabytes right there. That's a lot. Gee whiz. That's a thick booty boy. You're damn right, Proto. I mean, that's a lot. That's a lot. I think the Series S has what? The new version has a terabyte, but the original has 500 gigs. And that's not including system, like, stuff installed. So you're probably sitting... Like you're probably, I mean, at a third of the total capacity is taken up by Starfield alone. That's wild. That's wild. Yeah, it's got the Call of Duty size. How big was Fallout 4? Like 40 gigs? Oh, 30 gigs. Fallout 4 requires up to 39. This person says it's 79 gigs. Okay, with the DLC and stuff. Okay, so I guess if you have other stuff installed, maybe it's bigger, but I mean, 139 gigs is outrageous. That's wild, man. My gaming SSD is 1 terabyte and has 28 gigs free. Time to remove some games. Yeah, dude, I had to do that recently too. I had to go in and clean up because I had a lot of bloat in there. A lot of stuff I had installed just cuz, and I was like, I haven't touched this in a while, but I just want to be able to get into it if I want to, you know? I want to be available because I like to be free like that, you know? Also, let's see. I guess just in case somebody out there, in case one of you cares, there's a closed beta for Skull and Bones coming up. So that's happening. This is another one of those instances. So like with Starfield, everybody's been saying on Twitter, like, oh, this person I spoke to has said that the play test that they definitely are participating in is really good and the game's awesome. I did a video on Skull and Bones like a handful of months ago, maybe it was last year, but where I looked at some of those leaks of the play tests for Skull and Bones and basically just walked through, like, I get that some people are really liking it, but you have to remember a lot of the time the people that they assign to play tests are the types that really want to be in a play test. And guess what? Those are not going to be the most critical people. Those are not going to be the people that are looking at it and trying to see if there's holes in the hole, you know, if there's problems afoot. So they're not really the most reliable reporters. And so Skull and Bones, a lot of the community and a lot of the messages and things that I've been handed from people who have played the game have been very, very positive. People have been like, oh, dude, I love Skull and Bones. Way better than Sea of Thieves. I can't wait to play it. And I'm like, does that actually mean that Skull and Bones is going to launch and be like an amazing game? Maybe, but not necessarily. And I don't think that that is a piece of evidence sufficient to conclude that the game is going to be great. In the same way, like a leak that some guy on Twitter puts out, I don't think that that is justification for concluding that X game is going to be great. Like, look at this brain dead takes. Okay, just look at this. I mentioned this earlier on stream. According to old rumor of Starfield being in rough shape, has now been debunked by leaker. Says no, they are wrong. This comes from person who's currently playtesting Starfield and leaked some of story stuff. Now, I look at that and I say, what? First of all. And then once I figure out what he's trying to say, I then can conclude, okay, well, so there's no sources. There's no reason to like trust this person. Like, it's just a dude on Twitter. And he's saying that some dude says a thing that's different from what another dude allegedly said. And because it's closer to what I want him to say, therefore it's real. But the other one was not, or he was wrong. You know, notice how it's an old rumor, but this is a leaker. This new thing isn't a rumor. This new thing is a leak. So it's definitely real. And then the brain dead people in the replies, where's the, it hasn't gone gold, it's getting delayed clown crowd ad. I don't know. I mean, if you want to attack straw men to make yourself feel really smart, I guess you can do that. I don't know. Every time I read something this person has said, I instantly get a migraine. And I feel sorry because I think all of us are probably stupider having just read and absorbed that information. So for that, I am sorry. You know, Linus had to do an apology video today. I guess today I'm also going to have to do an apology video. I'm sorry for exposing you to such a ridiculous tweet. I'm so sorry, everybody. So sorry. Please forgive me. Oh, golly. Nerdridge, thank you for the super chat, my friend. Did you hear about AC Mirage's release date being released 1 week earlier? I bet it's due to Spidey 2 and Alan Wake. I did see that. We're going to talk about that on the podcast. And I think it's great. But I also agree. I think it's entirely based around probably Spider-Man. I think that they're just trying to give it a little more time, a full 2 weeks to be alone and to chill. You know, on the markets and maybe like at least sit pretty high in the charts for those 2 weeks. And then they'll just, you know, basically concede to Spider-Man because Spider-Man's going to dominate all public discourse and discussion once it drops. So even like the week leading up to it, it's probably going to dominate discussions because once the reviews drop, it's all anybody's going to be talking about. So I think it's a good, smart move for them, honestly. I think it was the right choice. So, yeah. Human connection provider. That's freaking amazing. Wow. Yeah. Okay. So this, I guess let's talk about this. This was the main thing I wanted to touch on. That I decided to do the pre-show for, because people on Discord were asking for my thoughts on it and everything. So I'll give the rough rundown and we'll kind of see what's up. Because I think it is important, and there are some interesting tidbits that have been raised. So we'll do that. Also, let me just run through these two things that I almost forgot to mention that I said I would reference. Yeah, Quebblecop. I don't know if you've never heard of this guy. He's like not an old school. He's like a YouTuber that does like Minecraft videos and GTA racing videos. He's one of those guys that just kind of screams really loudly. And that's his content. He has started experimenting with an AI avatar. So basically just being a VTuber. I don't know why. His audience apparently hates it. Somehow less soulless. I don't know. I saw this guy. Yeah, I don't think it's, it's not being received super well. I don't know what the play was. I don't know. Maybe it was just a ploy to get more clicks. I don't know. I don't know. He seems like a nice guy. I saw him on the PKA podcast and he seemed nice enough, but I don't know what that play is. I don't know. Not the avatar, his content is AI. So like, if he's starting to use AI to actually write the scripts and do AI voices and stuff, so he just doesn't have to do anything, that's pretty toxic. And then this one from Big Swiss on Twitter, or X, I guess. Soon they're going to be moving from twitter.com and it's all going to be on x.com. So it's going to be Xing, I guess, instead of tweeting. But send this over. Question pertaining to game companies who earn goodwill then destroy it with microtransactions. Do you think that because the games industry has grown exponentially off the backs of companies like Larian, and because they spend so much time and resources to make something like Baldur's Gate 3, that companies feel the need to pump out another game with microtransactions to support them making more games? The market is flooded since we have had DLC and free-to-play type games with seasonal content. The companies are incentivized to keep their users or risk losing them. The technology has changed the landscape for gamers and in effect the industry space or the industry practice. For one, I think that there's a lot of like mixing of genres that have gone on with Baldur's Gate 3 for some reason. People are looking at Baldur's Gate 3 and are like, wow, this game is so awesome, it's so pro-consumer, it's so blah blah blah, then run through all the great things Baldur's Gate 3 does, because it is great. But then they say, and look at Call of Duty, look at Fortnite, and they mention a bunch of live service games. And I just don't think that they are meant to appeal to the same audience. They're just not trying to get the same players. They're not trying to do the same things. They have much different development cycles, production cycles. They're just fundamentally different things. And so I don't think it's fair to conflate the two. I think it is fair to say, hey, Baldur's Gate 3 has risen the bar, so let's hold Ubisoft to a higher standard when they do an RPG, or when Bethesda Game Studios does an RPG, we can compare the variability of choices to Baldur's Gate 3. That's fair because they're in the same genre. But so often people just mix and match and are like, see, Fortnite isn't as good as Baldur's Gate because Baldur's Gate doesn't have microtransactions. It's like, yes, but Fortnite's free to play. And it's also like trying to appeal to a younger crowd, and they're based off of cosmetics, and it's the tentpole game for that entire multi-billion-dollar company. They have certain revenue targets to hit that they have to hit to keep server infrastructure as high as they do. Like it's different. It just is. So I think like a lot of the people that are making games like Baldur's Gate 3 are not making those live service games because they are so different. And every time we've seen companies that specialize in live service games try to do these like really solid single player games, usually it's filled with monetized crap that just isn't very good. Diablo 4 is kind of like a weird hybrid because you can play it solo, but it's clearly meant to be a live service game, so it's not quite the same. EA has experimented with it at times, with BioWare, of course. So I think they're just different. And I wouldn't expect Baldur's Gate 3, unfortunately, to change very much of anything. about the industry. Unfortunately, I just don't expect it to do it. I wish it did, but I just don't think they're going to do it. Well, aside from the game's elements, other studios can take a page from Larian's page on their dev philosophies. I think that's where it's being compared. Yeah, and if it's like, if your goal is to just try to encourage these big companies to provide a complete package, something that's not broken or something like that, I think that's fair. But like Call of Duty and their pricing model, like the game exists only because of the pricing model and vice versa. Like, that game is not built to be the most entertaining thing and the highest quality product that's released each year. It's meant to milk its players for as much money as possible while providing them a little drip of dopamine. And in that capacity, the audience and the player base has shown that they don't frankly like care that much about quality, because if they did, they would have stopped playing a long time ago. Because we complain every year, because every year it seems like those games get worse and worse and worse, and people keep playing and keep spending billions of dollars in them. So for the devs, they just don't, they're like, okay, well, we understand you really like Baldur's Gate 3, but clearly we don't need to change anything because the players are still buying all of this stuff. So until people stop engaging with it and stop paying and voting with their wallets, I just don't think anything will change. But it's because we have no alternatives. Well, and that's where, like, once there comes a live service game that drops and isn't monetized out the ass, then I think you can see stuff change, because then players will move over. Maybe you could say BattleBit. I don't know how BattleBit is monetized and priced. I think it's much more pro-consumer. But you need a handful of games like that, specifically from big studios that drive millions of players away from one game to another. And then they'll notice and they'll try to change it. But part of the tricky thing is, like, if you want really I guess if you want to see real change in the live service space, a live service game is going to have to come along and do what Baldur's Gate 3 did. Baldur's Gate 3 did great things for single player games, but I don't think it did enough, or I don't think it was ever going to really change anything from or for live service stuff. It's just not the same thing. Yeah, microtransactions aren't going anywhere. Large AAA games or companies aren't going to turn down billions of dollars in revenue due to a vocal minority, because that is what we are. That's kind of where I'm at. I just think, like, it's great. It makes us feel really good about ourselves to be like, yeah, microtransactions are anti-consumer and are bad, but we are a vocal minority. And for these companies to, like, win our favor and to get us happy, they would be sacrificing billions of dollars. And they're just not going to do that. Like, there's no reason. They'll just hire a PR firm to try and boost our opinion of them with random PR stunts. And that'll cost them $5 million, and they'll pocket the rest of the $2 billion that they saved by keeping that stuff in the game. So the only way that changes, unfortunately, is with another pricing model that either is more profitable, or by consumers and gamers just not basically taking it anymore and just be like, nope, we're not going to pay. We're not going to buy $20 skins. But the reason they make $20 skins is because people pay for them. People buy them, as insane as it is. That is really funny, Proto. I did not see that, but that's freaking hilarious if they're already trying to figure out how they're going to pivot and shift stuff around. That's awesome. But let's touch on this Linus stuff real quick. Before, basically, once we get through this, I will be taking like maybe a 5-10 minute break, and then we'll be back with Joel Raptor for the podcast, and we'll go for another like hour and a half after that. It'll be a separate event though, so you'll see on the Luke Stevens live channel there will be an actual podcast link. It's a separate like video or separate stream. So we'll end this one once we get through this story, and then we'll shift forward and do that. Yeah, I find it hilarious that the catalyst for the Linus Tech Tips controversy was literally caused by a discount Andrew Tate looking ass MF for dissing Gamers Nexus. I don't know who this guy is. He seems to be an employee, but it is funny that just an offhanded comment made by this guy seems to have kickstarted all of this, which is really, really just too bad. I'm sure he's a very nice guy, but people are saying he looks like Andrew Tate, which is sad. Where is it? Here. So this video dropped in my recommended feed out of nowhere, and I was just as surprised as anybody because so far Gamers Nexus and Linus Tech Tips have largely been very, very friendly. It was really, really weird to see them like get confrontational all of a sudden. But this is one thing Gamers Nexus has always been really good at. They just come in and they're going to call it like it is. And if Newegg is doing something scummy, even though they are like very friendly or maybe even sponsored by them, he's going to call them out. And I find it really, really refreshing. So let's see just a quick rundown of what's going on with Linus and why he's upset about it. So let's see.
A few days ago, this clip from an LTT lab tour got a lot of attention online.
The difference between us and somebody like Gamers Nexus or Hardware Unboxed is we test new components, new tests every time.
I think they go on to show that this is just not true, that they are not testing new stuff every single time. But it sounds like something he was probably told by one of his supervisors or managers. It sounds like a script almost, like the difference between us and these guys is blah, blah, blah. And it doesn't sound like something they were, I don't think they meant for him to say this publicly in a video that was seen by millions, but whatever.
And then Hardware Unboxed tweeted dissatisfaction with the statement made in that tour. We didn't say anything at all, anywhere. Even though it's not actually true, they don't collect new data and new tests every single time, and it's not always necessary anyway. So
yeah, I do want to be clear. I don't think it's really easy to pile on to a guy or his company when one person in that company of like 80 to 100 people says something that wasn't factually accurate. I don't think it's totally fair to hold like Linus's feet to the fire for something that one employee said that maybe was just him misunderstanding or saying something offhanded that shouldn't have been said. So I don't think it's necessarily fair to hold Linus's feet to the fire right up front. Where it gets problematic is if he refuses to do anything about it or address it or correct it or anything like that. That's where you can get in trouble.
So when Linus went on the WAN show, we hadn't gotten involved. Linus responded to Hardware Unboxed on the WAN show and then said the following.
There's a fair number of people that are talking about the whole Trust Me Bro situation, where there were some creators that it seems like you guys are... Look.
Just say it. Everyone knows you're talking about us.
It's pretty clear that not everyone in the creator space handled that super professionally. I don't obviously agree with some of the takes that were out there. I don't think that it's particularly journalistic, for example, to ignore facts, to ignore personal relationships.
It is.
Yeah, he's going to get into why that's what Linus just said is really, really problematic and is kind of indicative of somebody that I think views themselves as kind of a king in a very special position, because what he just said was these journalists are not being journalistic, which maybe that's debatable. I don't think in this case it is. I think it's just not an issue or not part of the discussion rather. But then to say and just ignore personal relationships, it's like, dude, that's kind of the point of journalism.
My job to ignore personal relationships.
Yeah.
If LMG is going to make false accusations and wants to try and use personal relationships to gain favor so that we don't cover something we think is not okay, it's not going to work with us. We don't play that game. The first
Yeah, you remember when I said that the problem is not, like, I don't think you should hold Linus's feet to the fire if one of his employees says something bad. Where it gets bad for Linus is when Linus refuses to acknowledge it, refuses to apologize and address it and figure out how they can fix it. Like, I don't think the guy should have his, like, I don't think the guy should be fired necessarily for making that offhanded comment. I don't think he really realized what he was saying was factually wrong when he said it. I think if he knew it was factually wrong, he probably wouldn't have said it. But when he said it, he probably believed it. But it turns out, no, it's wrong. It isn't accurate. They do reuse data. So Linus should have come up and said, yep, that was incorrect. It wasn't fair of us to, like, to bash it or be negative about it. We should just do all of that. Yeah, we're going to talk about the Madison thing as well. I've followed Madison for, at this point, like 2 years or however long it's been. I saw her on that initial video she did with Linus, and I followed her streams and everything since then, because she does a lot of like craft stuff, which is really handy if you're into Warhammer or D&D and you make your own minis and stuff. So I followed her a lot, and to hear her come out now all of a sudden and describe her experience at the company is troubling. So we'll touch on that.
From an LTT lab tour caught our attention, but it itself isn't worth commenting on. We have something wider in scope we want to comment on, and it's simply that we believe LTT or LMG is rushing too much to hit arbitrary and largely self-imposed deadlines that are causing frequent and sometimes significant data errors and information errors. And this conflicts with the ramping marketing surrounding accuracy and data-driven objective reviews that they're pushing for from LTT Labs. So we've decided to turn off all YouTube monetization here. We will not be placing a sponsored ad in this video. We were just going to report on serious concerns that we have with LTT and bring some awareness to these critical issues. We've been thinking on this for a few months now. We have a few main points of discussion for today. They span.
And so he proceeds to just tear them a new one as far as their lack of professionalism with removing errors, like consistent issues with methodologies on tests, which you might be like, what's the big deal? If you mistest a GPU, what's the harm? Well, maybe with like a big GPU from NVIDIA, it's not that big of a deal. NVIDIA will be fine. It's still incorrect, but like, it's not like you're hurting a small mom and pop shop. The problem does really come, and it's not defendable or defensible once you get into this future area where this Belay Labs thing comes up, which we'll skip ahead to here in just a second, because I mean the point is made. You can see how much time they're able to dedicate to how many incorrect little bits of data are listed under, like, within the videos when they're reviewing this stuff. It's just indicative of them rushing, because normally these issues are caught and they correct them with asterisks or with pinned comments or edited things in the description that barely anybody sees. But they shouldn't be in the video to begin with if it's running like a really professional operation, you know?
And from raw data that potentially misleads consumers, even if unintentional, accidental, that counts too. And we have some ethical concerns and corporate connections that we want to talk about, including great ethical concerns regarding LTT's inaccurate testing and misrepresentation of a small company's prototype, followed by the auctioning off of that prototype, despite the company wanting it back for other media and not granting permission for the auction. Also,
which I don't know how that's legal. Like, I would think that they'd be able to like sue LTT over that, but maybe, I don't know, maybe there's nuance to it. Yeah, we're going to look at the Linus response. Yeah, no, we're not here to just dunk on Linus. I want to figure out what the actual thing is that's going on, what the there is. So we're going to look at that here in just a minute. Well, it's not legal. So like the reason I say that is because I've been sent stuff for like reviews, for example, and it's like a verbal agreement that like, hey, if you don't like it, or after the review or whatever, sometimes it's like if you just want to try it before you decide to review it, or try it before you decide to do an ad read for it. If you don't like it and you just don't want to do the deal, send it back to us. Or in some cases, you'll even do reviews for things and they'll ask for the product back. We haven't done something like that in a very long time. I'm like, no, if you're going to send me something, I'm like, I think it's fair. If I'm going to promote it and I like it enough to promote it, I think it's fair that I keep it. Especially if it's a pair of like glasses or something, you know. But in this case, it sounds like they sent him a product. There was probably like a verbal agreement that, hey, you can send it back because it's a prototype. It's not a finished product. Send it back to us when you're done with the video. And then they screwed up the review because they tested it incorrectly. And then they decided to auction it off, which just seems really scummy. Like, I don't. So yeah, I think it was sent in good faith, and it was probably a verbal agreement where they said, yeah, and then you can send it back to us. But They clearly didn't honor it, which is just a problem. But
So we're concerned about ethics.
oh, also, I was going to refer to that. Let's see. Dana Olson Gaming, I think, maybe. Do you think that companies turn to microtransactions and season passes because we are one of the only industries that has demanded better products every year with no relative increase in price for decades? Yes, no, no doubt. If you adjust for inflation, games are cheaper now. AAA games are cheaper now than they were in the 80s and 90s. The equivalent game in the 80s and 90s cost today what would be like $110 for a AAA game that back then was much smaller, much cheaper to develop, but granted the market was much smaller, so you're moving many fewer units. But clearly, like the price for games has not grown with the times and adjusted for inflation in a very long time. In fact, jumping from 60 to $70 was the first increase in AAA game prices in 15 years or 20 years or something crazy like that. So absolutely, microtransactions and season passes are the adjustment they've made to make up for that difference. If Activision were able to come in and sell like Call of Duty for $120 and not be crucified in the public, they would do that, and maybe then they wouldn't feel the need to go and do microtransactions. But let's be honest, they still would, because right now they're already doing it. Why wouldn't they? Desirs, thank you for the $4.99 as well. Thanks for the entertainment and the laughs. The streams and VODs have been a godsend for long hours driving for work. Keep doing what you do. Will do, my friend. Thank you so much. You guys are so generous. Appreciate you. Let's continue. Let's see. Okay.
Issues regarding LMG's recent review of the Ponage mouse, where they failed to notice that there was protective tape over the Teflon feet.
This is bad. This one actually makes me cringe pretty bad.
To knock the friction coefficient of the mouse, followed up by a pseudo correction wherein LMG fails to take full ownership of its mistake and instead blames the product for not handholding them through the process of removing said tape. But we'll start with the simpler stuff and then come back to this. So the market.
Oh, so like the equivalent to this would be if I review, like, I can't get specific, but like I'm reviewing a game right now, that I, again, can't be specific about, but in the past with game reviews, often you're playing a build of the game that has been created well before launch. So there might be a couple of issues, there might be bugs, there might be things that will be fixed when the game launches, but that you're going to deal with because you're playing an earlier version of the game. Sometimes this is something like, one time years ago, I remember there was a review where it was like, yeah, the FOV by default is set to like 30 degrees. You can't see anything. And so before you start playing, you need to go into the game's save folder in your app data folder that's hidden in Windows, open the INI and change this number from 30 or 40, whatever it was, and change it to whatever FOV you desire. And then when the final game launches, it will default to like 75 or 80, and then you can change it with a slider in the menu that we don't currently have. And I was like, okay, really, really weird and clunky, but okay. As long as it's in the final version of the game, we're good. I'll tweak it this weird, clunky way, but it's not fair for me to like diss the game because I had to go through that roundabout thing during the review process. It like, if I didn't change that and then I spent the whole review talking about how stupid the 30 or 40 degree, whatever I said, FOV was, that wouldn't be fair. That would be stupid because you're like, that's not the game that launched. That's just not it. And with this, they're talking about on the mouse, on the bottom of it, there was still like tape on these little portions and it made it drag weird. And they didn't notice that there was tape on the bottom of the mouse that they needed to remove before using it. And then they spent a bunch of time in the review bashing it for not feeling good when it slid around, which is just dumb. Like, it's just dumb. But this is, again, like, it wasn't Linus that did that, but it was one of his employees. And in theory, this shouldn't have happened if more than one or two people were working on the videos that could catch this kind of thing. And then also the way they responded to it was not great because they basically pinned a comment, said, actually, this big complaint we had is not a big deal, but it's their fault for not making it clear to us. You know, it's just, it leaves a bad taste in your mouth.
Marketing is strong, but exiting just entertainment and entering technical data-driven reviews and marketing on the back of that means that there needs to be proper work to back all of that up, because people are now putting a different level of faith in the material coming out, and the expectations are different. And we know these issues at LTT in terms of the rushing, the pushing employees and staff to hit deadlines despite concerns with the data or the collection of the data. We know that these come from top down, as shown in a recent LTT interview that it conducted with its own employees, where many of them stated concerns with content quality pertaining to restrictive time constraints.
Yeah, this is crazy. Like, they filmed this and put this up on their own channel, and overwhelmingly, the employees are all like, give us more time. We put out too many videos. The crunch is terrible. Help us. Dear God, help.
Less videos.
I wish we could back off the amount and focus on quality for a bit.
More time for projects would be good.
Just allow us more time to work on a video.
We never have time for retrospection. It's always just, that's out. What's the next thing?
Would be nice if the pace was lessened a little bit. Have time to like debrief or look in the rearview mirror at how things went.
I don't love that we have to release so many videos. I don't know.
25 plus videos a week. A week. And like, these aren't quick little like stream highlights or something. These are like huge videos filmed with Red Epic cameras that have high-end audio that mixes with them. Like, these are very, very elaborate projects, and they're pumping out that many. Like, it's crazy. I think it's 80. I don't know if somebody in chat knows exactly how many people work there now. Last I heard on one of their waveform, that's MKBHD. Last I heard on their WAN show podcast, I thought it was like somewhere between 80 and 100, but maybe it's up to 120. If you mix in the lab that they just opened, 120, I think. Okay. Yeah. I mean, if it's 120, that's still like just 25 super high production value videos. It's just crazy. But like, this is the problem with this is like the employees are asking for more time. And the only way you get more time is by lowering the total number of projects and videos that go out, which lowers revenue because there's not as much ad revenue. There's not as much sponsored revenue, not as many merch calls, things like that. And so that probably means that they downsize and let some more employees go. And so the whole thing just kind of starts to tumble. And so it's just an example where they've grown working their employees to the bone, and now they're trying to figure out if there's any way out of it, which is rough. By the way, I firmly believe that Starfield will be a huge hit and miss. Game, it's going to be bad. Oh, really, Nerd Rage? We'll see. We'll see. It's going to be... I don't know if we'll get a review code. Like I said, I do not expect to get one. But if we do, I'm going to be very, very intrigued. I'm so ready. I just want to know. Even with that many employees, they still complain about the amount of time they get. Yeah. Well, it's just... I don't know if it's clear, like, the types of videos I make and put up on my channels are pretty low effort compared to what Linus does. Everything that they're doing on LTT has a script that has to be written by somebody, proofread, and checked factually with somebody, and then they sit down, they film it on a big set with very expensive cameras. They then have to take all the footage off, transcode it through a server. That server then moves it to another server, and then an editor then edits a draft of it. Then a reviewer then goes through, watches the video through once to make sure there's no editing mistakes, and if there are, they have to send it back to the reviewer to get corrections. And then after that, they insert any extra ads or things that they need to do, and then they get it finalized, rendered at max quality, and then send it off to the YouTube servers. Like, it's very, very elaborate. This is not a situation where you're throwing together a video in an afternoon just casually for the main channel content. Some of their smaller channels and smaller projects, they can probably do that quick. But the big stuff, no, this is like a dozen people or 24 people total touching a project by the time it goes out over the course of like 2, 3, 4 days. So it's very, very elaborate. And so it seems pretty clear that the employees want more time and that there's not enough time for all of this. But beyond rushing stuff and factual inaccuracies in reviews, what else is there? Well, he gets into discussions of ethical concerns and then also conflicts of interest, and then the whole Belay Labs thing, which Linus still apparently refuses to acknowledge was a problem, which we'll get to.
And all of these post-shoot, pre-publishing corrections bring us to the next set of concerns, which is an increasing amount of irresponsible actions and conflicts that we've seen emerging from Linus Tech Tips. So we've been seeing an alarming amount of conflicts from Linus Tech Tips as it relates to their corporate connections, their flow of money, and the potential bias as a result of those things. And we've been looking into this, maybe more of a future video thing, but some of the concerns include how Linus is personally invested $200,000 into laptop maker Framework, and yet is also covering their product and their competitors' products. LMG also has a...
Yeah, investing into a company and then like promoting it on your channels, I don't have a problem with that. I do have a problem if you're going to then review the competitors' products. That seems very problematic. Even if you say, just full disclosure, I've invested in this other company that also makes laptops. I guess that gets you out of it legally, but still that leaves like a really weird feeling for me. That seems strange. I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you think that if you, if I invested in, like if I had a major stake in, I don't know what would be a good example. Oh, well, maybe just to keep it simple, like I have a huge stake in something like, I don't know, EA that makes Battlefield, but then I'm expected to fairly review Call of Duty. I'm not sure that that works. Like, even if I'm really trying to be fair with it, I don't know if I'm like, if I can be, it just doesn't sit right. You know, it doesn't sit right. Something seems off with it.
A cross-branded, again, screwdriver with Noctua, and that's being sold on their store while they're also reviewing Noctua products favorably, even when it's shown to be hitting, by their own data, 100 degrees Celsius, which becomes problematic for brands like Noctua as well, because now it is less clear if the praise is genuine or if it is biased, whether intentional or unintentional. These issues combined with...
And even if the review is factually correct, or even if everything in the review is good, because of the conflict of interest, there's a question there. And with reviewers and things, there shouldn't be a question at all. It's why, like, I've received offers to do reviews or paid reviews. So, like, if a company comes along and it's like, hey, would you like to review like Starfield? And we'll pay you 15 grand or 20 grand, or like if you're a big guy like Skill Up, they probably are paying him like 50 to 100 grand for one of his reviews. If they come along and they say that, then like if I say, hey, this review is sponsored by the company that made the freaking game I'm reviewing, you probably shouldn't believe it, right? Like, that's a conflict of interest. It just doesn't sit right. And so I think, like, that's why I'll do like sponsored looks at games. If a company wants me to see a game and expose my audience to it, sure, as long as I'm allowed to say whatever I want. That's always the agreement I have my agent make with them. Like, I'm down to do a sponsored look. Like Immortals of Avium, for example, they sponsored me to look at the game early back in like May, I think it was. And I was like, as long as I'm allowed to say whatever I want, I will say, like, I'll look at the game and I'll make a video on it, sure. But I'm going to say whatever I want, positive or negative. And if they say, yeah, go for it, then we're good. Because at least they trust in their product enough to be like, yeah, you're going to like what you see. Yeah, it's okay. But a sponsored review, I don't think I'd ever do. Because it's just, it doesn't make any sense to me. Like, can you imagine? Can you imagine being like, oh, there's a new Skill Up review or something, and then you click on it, and it's like, welcome to my review of Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora, sponsored by Ubisoft. You'd immediately be like, what? It'd be weird. Yeah, it's like the FBI investigating the FBI. Yeah. It's like, what?
High-level corporate connections through the CEO and through the head of labs raise a lot of concerns about conflict, but we won't be getting into them in depth in this video. Instead, we're going to focus on the consequences of irresponsible reporting and bad data and how that influences the purchasing decisions of millions of people. To start with, let's discuss the implicit ethics of knowing a lack of qualifications yet continuing to operate on a certain type of content, or being unwilling to commit the time to do that content properly, especially if you know that there are flaws and shortcomings already and choose to forge ahead. We don't really see any other options here. It is either too rushed to the point of potentially producing harmful information to viewers and to consumers that they then act on, and to manufacturers alike, or the company is unqualified to produce that information. It's really one or the other. This one talks about the ethics and power of a review outlet and therefore its responsibility to do due diligence on a product. On June 24th, LTT published a video about a copper water block made by a small company called Billet Labs, founded just last year. LTT took one of the company's first prototypes to test, valued
A prototype, okay.
in the thousands of dollars for manufacturing, not counting opportunity value. In the video, the LTT team stuck this special 3090 Ti water block on an RTX 4090.
If this wasn't a 3090 Ti, then we don't have another 3090 Ti that we can take apart.
How the hell did we not know what GPU this thing was?
I thought it was a 3090 Ti.
So we just
Bro. How is the audience okay with this? Like, it's specifically made for a 3090 Ti, and they're like, I don't know what this is. Maybe it works on that. Like, what?
Casually had a 4090 sitting on the shelf, clearly labeled,
stating that it should work, despite it not being explicitly compatible. The company did not tell LMG that it would be 4090 compatible. They told LMG that they could try to use a 4090, but Billet Labs itself had not tested one as it didn't have a 4090 at the time. Water blocks have very specific tolerances and clearances for components, so any misalignment would cause poor contact to the GPU core. LMG decided to try it and continued with the video despite misrepresenting the product massively by using it on an incompatible device that it literally would not fit properly. LTT's presentation goes down the path of being irresponsible, presenting the product as much more difficult to work with than it would be if used properly. The conclusion...
Yeah, that's really bad. To be like, I tried to use this on a non-compatible thing and now it doesn't work well. Like, what?
Like, it's a cool product, but it's a bad product.
It looks great.
Yeah, it looks super cool.
Are you just saying it's bad just purely because of the price?
It's bad because it makes absolutely no sense and nobody should buy it. Most of the community is actually really amazing, but there's a vocal minority that looks at something like that and goes, lazy, out of touch, whatever else. No, I'm just really experienced at this.
Oh! You got it.
Crap.
Did you put it in backward?
Get a shot of that. Look at that.
It founds this conclusion on the basis of improper installation. This serves no one. It needlessly harms a small company, and this kind of behavior can kill someone's life work in a heartbeat.
Their life savings they've invested in the company, all this just because one YouTuber decided to make a review and then take tons of shortcuts, not take it seriously. Like, I've said this before, I get like really, really freaking anxious when I'm making reviews even for like big companies. Like probably the one that was most stressful recently was that Gollum review. Like Gollum, we all agree, is probably the worst game of the year so far. It was horrible in every way, but I got it. I saw like they had a little bios of all the devs that worked on it in the review packet that I got. And like, I see these people are really passionate about Lord of the Rings and they really like seem to care about the source material. And then I started playing the game and it's just horrible in every way, shape, and form. And so as I'm like writing the review and filming it and making it, and I'm like, I don't feel good about this. Like, I don't like coming out here and being like, all of these people that made these games that are horrendous, yeah, they should be ashamed and blah, blah, blah. Like, I don't like doing that. I would much rather come in here and say, this game is a surprise and it's actually way better than you thought. It's great. I love it. But instead, I have to come here and be like, yeah, this thing these people have been passionately working on for years is an utter disaster and they should be embarrassed. It doesn't feel good. But for like some of these bigger creators to just so casually tear apart a company because they screwed it up. I mean, the comparable thing would be if I made that big Gollum video tearing it a new one, and then it came out that the only reason it was buggy for me is because I didn't read the email that sent the review code with it that said, make sure to do this, this, and this before you play and update to the newest version. Otherwise, you'll have bugs and it'll be horrible. Like, then that would be comparable to this. Like I intentionally and knowingly failed. I guess the direct comparison would be if I read the email, understood that I was playing the game incorrectly or that I didn't update the game and it wasn't going to perform properly, and then I still put the negative review out anyways. That would be the comparable thing to this, because that's what they did. They knew that it wasn't compatible with the 4090 and still put the video out, potentially destroying a company that's brand new. It's just baffling to me. It's so unprofessional. It's horrible.
And it'd be based on invalid testing and presentation. One of the company founders posted below the video and stated this, quote, "We love LTT, but it was difficult to watch their criticisms when pretty much every design issue that Linus raised was done for a reason which was all explained to Adam weeks ago, none of which, I guess, was fed back to Linus. We also sent a full instruction manual that seemingly wasn't used. I think there's definitely been a major communication breakdown along the video pipeline. We assumed we'd have a chance to answer any problems that were raised and explain them before it being publicly misrepresented." LMG faced some...
Dude, for real. And like, you look at the comparison, 3.7 likes, or 1,000 likes, to be clear, 3.7 thousand likes. Not bad. The video probably did over 1 million, 2 million views or something, because Linus is huge. How many people are actually going to watch that video and then go and see the correction?
Controversy from its community, at which point it replied on the following WAN show, doubling down despite a complete lack of accurate or even useful testing.
Nothing would have changed. Nothing that obeys the laws of physics would have changed the conclusion.
That statement is already a reckless and problematic doubling down, considering the elimination of any possibility to change the conclusion, including a 20-degree reduction, which should change the conclusion.
Yeah, dude, for real, a 20 degrees CC reduction. Unacceptable in the community is disturbing. I don't know. What is this?
All of this is ethically unacceptable. They like to brand their short circuit stuff as unboxings, or in other words, not reviews. But it's disingenuous to hide behind that whenever there's a mistake. This magnitude of error is what the mouse, or in the case of the water block, the block is marketed on, which is either glide or thermals. And to screw the strongest marketing point through such an egregious error as not taking the tape off of the product and still leaving the video up, even while processing a cut, is callous to the impact that those choices have on these companies. Linus Media Group is massive. That has to be treated responsibly. There are correct actions. It should result in some...
Yeah, they were offered $100 million.
Some sort of immediate trigger, like a removal of the video with a follow-up saying, "We did it again, here's the new result." What's even more disturbing, though, is the community response every time someone has a criticism that's valid. Like when the community beat down Hardware Unboxed for voicing their concerns of LTT's testing accuracy issues, which, while not completely tactful, yes, were valid. Then you look at the recent comments, though, like this, quote, "If a professional mouse reviewer couldn't figure it out, what makes..."
What's your job? I'm a professional mouse reviewer. It's insane. It's insane. I mean, all of this really comes back to rushing videos, for one, and two, a lack of professionalism on the part of Linus and the managers and the supervisors and stuff. That review, even though the mouse unboxing went out, they should have unlisted the video or privated it while they did a YouTube cut, which can take like 24 hours to process, which cuts out that portion of the video describing the issue on the foot of the mouse because they didn't take the freaking tape off. And then they should republicize it and send it back out and then apologize profusely to the brand and blah, blah, blah. That's like best case scenario. Maybe even do a dedicated video apology and explanation for it. But instead, they just don't bother with any of that. And this is all compounded by something else that I mentioned at the top. Madison, if you don't know her, she was in early videos, like maybe 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago. She won a competition to get a PC built for her by Linus, and she was in the video with him. And their chemistry was so hilarious. She was just roasting him the whole time, and it was really, really funny. And so people started joking, "You need to hire her. She's great. Hire her, hire her." It's just, it was funny. And so they announced that they did. And after just like a few months, I think it was a few months, I don't know if she says exactly how long, but she ended up leaving because the work environment was so crazy and toxic and just terrible that it wasn't good for her mental health. So like I said at the top, I've followed Madison or Soup for a while. She does like a bunch of streams where she'll do like hobbyist stuff where she'll go in and paint stuff or create little decorations and stuff. So if you're into D&D or Warhammer or something, there's a lot of cool stuff that she does. But she she describes how she never made any statements publicly because she thought she had signed an NDA. Doesn't look like she actually did, which is why she's coming out now. She says, my time at LTT brought my mental health to an all-time low. You could talk to anyone who was around me during my employment and they would confirm it. I would not have recommended anyone I knew to work there, especially with my experience as a woman in the office. I was constantly belittled by certain members of upper management. My work was called dog shit and I was called incompetent. When I would reach out to managers to try and get help with these situations, I would be told to put on my big girl pants and be more assertive. Wow. It doesn't matter if you think I am or am not stupid. This behavior is not appropriate. After enough complaints from me, I was pulled into a meeting. In that meeting, the writer's room was pointed to, and I was asked, do you think any of these people would have a hard time getting a job? I said no. Keep in mind, this was only about a month into me working there. I was then pointed to and asked, what about you? I was scared. I remember asking, are you going to fire me? And I was laughed at and told to stop being so pessimistic, as if my job and ability hadn't just been vaguely threatened. I was then asked to agree to a verbal no drama contract, which sounds super professional, like Jesus. The verbal part is very important, of course. Let's see. I realized at this moment that I wasn't considered part of the team. I was now a threat because I was putting up a fuss. Yeah, I mean, now she's coming out and she's causing problems, so they're upset about it and they're gonna drag their feet, and you know, she's now a problem because she's expressing discomfort. And so they go into all of this. They describe she describes like all of these frustrations and things she had with the company. After it was publicly announced by Linus that he was hiring me without my knowledge or consent to that situation, and also before I was even offered the job or shown the salary. Before she flew and moved to Vancouver from Arizona, she was given one basically handbook contract set of agreements and things that she agreed to, and then when she actually moved and arrived in Vancouver to start work, she was greeted with a different agreement and things were different. Basically, they had swapped out terms of her employment without notifying her after she had moved and given up her visa and all this, so she had no choice but to go along with it. Work from home was a whole issue. If you took 3 minutes to answer a personal email, you could get in trouble. Happened to me. There's a system of micromanaging and a level of distrust because the amount of content they push daily is so insane. No one gets a break. I remember getting told off for taking my sick days, as in the days you're entitled to when you're freaking sick. This no days off grind set culminated in the real moment I realized I had to leave. This is the insane bit. I purposely cut my leg open so bad I would have to go to the ER to get it stapled back together. It was genuinely the only way in my mind to take a day off without being harassed for a reason why. I had spoken to managers about how I was struggling and how the workload was too much for one person, but I was belittled and told you just have bad time management skills. I mean, if anything in your life ever pushes you to cut your leg open so that you can avoid something, X, whatever it is, you're in pretty deep. Like that's pretty terrible. Like that's ridiculous. I remember, I mean, when she's saying that this put her into a mental situation that, you know, her mental health was at the very bottom it ever has been. I believe it. If you're going to cut your leg open to get out of going into work, like I can understand that. I would stress that that's not something you should do. And hopefully you never get pushed to that point, but I hope she has found help since to not harm herself to get out of something like that, because that's pretty horrible. But she continued. I mean, this, if you want to go read through this whole thread, it's it's a lot. It's a lot. There's a whole lot. Yeah, she describes that when she finally said she wanted to leave, that they said they would announce it on the WAN show, but she said only announce it on the WAN show if you tell everybody I quit and not that I was fired. But because of that, they never announced it on the WAN show. She just stopped appearing and stuff and disappeared, which was really, really weird. The day I handed in my notice was when somebody who constantly overstepped me, misled what I was working on, and who I was, said to me, quote, "I think the reason you try to be funny is because you lack any other skills." They smiled and then walked away. I quit 15 minutes later. I can understand that. It just sounds like a really high intensity, extremely stressful environment. That certainly is not for everybody, but that can work when you are the person at the very, very top and you're the one pulling the long days, like Linus. If he wants to work like that, more power to him. I've had grind sessions where I grind out like crazy for videos we do, but that's me. Like if I have employees, I should not be holding them to that same standard or expectation. I don't think that's fair. So, yeah, I just think like all of this is just compounded and compounded and compounded time and time again, and we're running out of time on the segment. But beyond this, Linus apologized for his initial response to all of this. I wanted to watch the whole thing, but I think we're running out of time before the podcast. Mr. Joraptor's in here. So we're just running out of time there. And then but I encourage everybody to go watch it yourself. Go see it yourself. All I think they really need to do to dig themselves out of this is to come out and say, listen, we take these allegations seriously. We're going to hire an external party to do a formal review of workplace conditions with HR and everything. And then we're also going to be stepping back our production schedules to give our employees more time to focus on quality instead of quantity, and to prioritize a healthy mental health balance for our employees so that they're not so stretched thin. And honestly, I think they're going to see more support from their community and much better videos that are going to perform better. I mean, I'm a firm believer that happy workers do better work. I just firmly believe that. So, there's been times where I've told Jacob, like, hey, no, we're not going to do a video on Friday. Just take a break, because we did 2 reviews back to back. You've been working like crazy. Take a break. Go like out to the bar or something. Just go relax. Do something fun. I just think it's important to have a healthy work-life balance. Certainly. Their subreddit's tearing them apart. To be honest, I feel like they need a massive overhaul. Part of it is that it's Gamers Nexus that came out and said all of this. If it was anybody else, like Tom's Hardware or anything, I don't think it would have been this big. But Gamers Nexus has a very sterling reputation, and they do not just call out people for no reason. So I think that's key. Sometimes happy worker equals lazy worker. Sure, but I think the lazy worker is going to be lazy whether they're happy or not. So I would say happy workers are better workers, but if you're lazy, I'm not going to hire you. Of course, like, you're going to be fired pretty quickly for not being productive. But I'm a believer that if somebody is happy, they will be more productive and more beneficial to the firm than if they are unhappy. Yeah, and they also called out the Linus backpack warranty issue. Yeah. The new LTT CEO will be gone by the end of the year. I don't think so. I think it's really funny that this kicks in and happens right as he takes over, because I'm pretty sure he just took over. But no, I mean, all of the stuff that's being described is because of Linus. Like, all of these decisions with production schedules, with deciding to still put videos out when they're not ready to be put out, all of that comes from Linus. It's nobody else's fault. So anyway, I'm having just a flood of notifications on my watch all at once. Okay, well, we are about to jump on the podcast. Okay, so we're gonna do that. Did I see the Starfield Q&A? I sure did. We already did a segment on that earlier in the stream, so go check that out. But right now, we're going to end this stream right here and move over to the podcast stream, which is just a separate link. So you'll see it on the Luke Stevens Live page. We're about to just pretty much end this stream and start the stream over there with Joe Raptor. So we're going to jump onto that. The one and only Free Roam podcast. Let me share. That's a good point. Like, I can share the link. We have the technology. Hold on. Hold on. Please hold. Oh my God. Share button. Copy. Oh my God. Okay, hold on. Paste. Okay, so pop over here. We'll see you there in just a second. Okay, everybody? I love you dearly. We'll talk in just a moment. Be right back. Much love.